Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In my series, Freemasonry and Satanism. Lordy, lordy, who would believe it? The more I continue to do my research, to investigate, WTH, what the heck is going on in our world? What the heck has happened in the past? And what the heck is going to happen in the future? WTH. So the more I look into this stuff, the more amazed I am at the material out there, which seems to be telling us a story. Although, I must admit, a concerning story. Seemingly even a dangerous story. I guess there's forces out there that just don't want you to talk about some things or know about some things. So where does that leave us? Should we inquire about the past? Should we be curious about some of the things that the powers that be are doing right now? Should we be concerned about the future? I think so. So I have a new book to look at. Pursuing my research, I came across this book. And what I do is I watch videos, I read books. The authors of the books I read mention other authors. Nick Kollerstrom, How Britain Initiated Both Wars. Well, it seems like a concerning topic and something concerning to say, something concerning to even just think about. Britain initiated both world wars? Is there something here we should know? Remember, a couple hundred years ago, 1776, America, United States declared independence from Britain. And then we had World War I, where Britain was losing the war with Germany. And to turn the tide, the elite, bankster, Illuminati, Zionist, Jewish folks approached Britain and said, hey, we can turn this around, but we want something. We want Palestine. We want our own state, our own kingdom. Maybe to regain or rebuild the ancient kingdom of Judea. Coincidentally, this would be in fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And also, incidentally, they've been working at this for 300 plus years. So it is a huge milestone to get there. And now that they have arrived, even recently, President Donald Trump said that the U.S. recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And if you're anybody who pays any attention at all, you know all about the insanity and the chaos and anarchy and the destruction that's gone on in the Middle East quite intensively since 2001, but even before. And believe it or not, the Middle East took quite a hit during World War I and World War II. And it appears, through my research, that's why we had World War I and World War II and so much more. Certain peoples seemingly want to have a global world order, a new world order, and they've been scheming and planning and taking action and controlling governments and taking over different countries' money supplies for hundreds of years, bringing about revolutions, even a civil war in the United States, even having American presidents assassinated and presidents of other countries and citizens. It almost boggles the mind. So when you talk about a topic like this, how Britain initiated both world wars, some people would say, Rick, you're crazy. Britain wouldn't do that. But I don't believe, of course, it was the British people, no more than I think that all the Jewish people are responsible for the actions of a few. People who are into this Kabbalah, Mystery Babylon religions, secret societies, i.e., as the Bible says in Revelation, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "Ye are of your father Satan." Apparently, Satan in the Bible took Jesus to a mountaintop and said, "Bend your knee to me, and I will give you this whole planet." Jesus turned him down, said, "In my Father's kingdom there are many mansions." So should we be connecting biblical prophecy, the actions of the Illuminati, Zionist, Kabbalistic, Luciferic, secret societies, satanic organizations and cults and temples with the physical realities of a civil war in the United States in the 1860s, the French Revolution at the end of the 1800s, World War I at the beginning of the 1900s, a few years later, the revolution and overthrow of the Tsar in Russia, then China, then World War II, 9/11. Is it possible that we really are going to have World War III as prophesied by Albert Pike in the 1880s? These are concerning things to say. These are concerning things to think about. But I think there are people out there that do not want you or I thinking about these things, talking about these things. And I believe people have been killed, imprisoned, framed, discredited, destroyed, so that people wouldn't find out about this stuff. And I've got about a dozen of my videos restricted. One on World Revolution by Nestor Webster, published in 1921, 100 years ago. And the video's been up on my website for a couple of years, but I've been republishing everything because they get lost in obscurity in the back rooms of the internet. They don't show up on search engines. People don't know about it. That's why I do book reviews. I discovered there's a lot of books out there like this one that people don't know about. What was something interesting about this one I just noticed? Look what it says on the inside. No copyright. Do copy. Nick Kollerstrom. I can read every single word in this book. But that might be too much. Here's an interesting picture. How Britain initiated both world wars. Your country needs you. Of course, in America, we had the same propaganda with Uncle Sam. Your country needs you. We were deceived into World War I, World War II. What really boggles my mind is people aren't as pained as I am to contemplate the amount of death and suffering that we all experienced, our grandparents, our uncles, their parents, during World War I, World War II, and the Civil War, our great-grandparents, their parents. Somebody's controlling our world, bringing us this endless death and suffering and financial destruction, stealing stuff from us over and over and over. And to me, every single life is important. For one person to be assassinated or killed because of these people pushing for a global world order, a new age, a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, a prophecy that says when they do gain their kingdom, we will experience Armageddon, an annihilation and destruction of the world. And then there'll be a better world. It's maybe the second coming of Jesus Christ. But even if one person, never mind the millions and millions that have been killed and maimed and lost their family members and their children and their farms and their businesses and their lands, and it just pains me. It's just too much. And what it boggles my mind is it doesn't seem to faze a lot of people. What does it say about me, or what does it say about people who just don't care? Makes you wonder. So anyways, I'm going to read right from the beginning of this a little bit and throw in my 2 cents. The First World War. Getting used to this new camera, pardon me. Who are these people? We all recognize Churchill. But when I was reading this, I was amazed. It's funny how this new camera kind of gets blurry when I try to hold some material up. Still getting used to it. Seems like a really good camera with very clear, crisp pictures. The Logitech C920 Pro HD webcam. And of course, I got nothing to do with the company. I just like to improve my videos. So the author says, this isn't about the history of the wars, or about who the good guys or who are the bad guys. But it concerns the concept of initiating a world war. A very extraordinary concept. And who wanted it? And who wanted it to happen? We do not accept that it just happened by itself. And I will try and argue that a will to war initiation came from this country and not some other country. Let's start off in the months coming up to the First War. May 1914, when an American statesman reported back to America after a tour in Europe. He said, the situation is extraordinary. Jingoism runs stark mad. He was talking about the instability of the European nations. There was no way of avoiding this awful cataclysm. No one in Europe can do it. It's locked into too many jealousies, and whenever England consents, France and Russia will close in on Germany and Austria. Wow. This is before World War I, way before World War II and the so-called Holocaust. So why were they angry or wanting to see Germany destroyed? And there were wars before this, by the way, FYI. Now that is a good summary of what happened. So it's got a little note here on the bottom. Report by Colonel Mandel House, May 1914. So the American statesman that went over to Europe was Colonel Mandel House. And he says, the situation is extraordinary. It is jingoism run stark mad. Unless someone acting for you, Wilson, can bring about a different understanding, there is coming someday an awful cataclysm. No one in Europe can do it. There's too much hatred, too many jealousies. Whenever England consents, France and Russia will close in on Germany and Austria. So remember, President Wilson was the president in May 1914. This is important, the dates, because remember, on December 21st, 1913, on Christmas holiday, Senator Hyde and a bunch of other people conspired at Jekyll Island in Georgia, USA, came up with the concept of the Federal Reserve and had Woodrow Wilson's cooperation and okay, and they were going to create the privately owned Federal Reserve and control the United States money. Think about that. And there's war getting ready to break out in Europe, all kinds of activities going on, and apparently, according to this book, people were actually planning for the war. So, of course, the Illuminati, Zionist, elitist, banksters, Jewish people, not all Jewish people, of course, had to get control of the USA money supply after not having control for almost 50 years. Even attempted assassinations on 3 or 4 presidents, successful assassination on 2, poisoning. They had lost control, responsibility for bringing about the American money, currency. The corporation was withdrawn around 1850, plus or minus. I made a video on this material. But now they had control of the USA money. Their president, Woodrow Wilson, that they put in office, was our president in the United States. The president before him, Taft, was pressured because these Illuminati, Zionist, bankster, elite Jewish people, not all Jewish people, were pressing for the United States and Britain and Germany and Turkey and all the people who had any influence or control in the Middle East to obtain the Palestinians' land to create the state of Israel. But President Taft, before President Wilson, turned them down, as well as the senators and representatives of the United States. They knew what was happening. And I've learned all this in my research. So they said, don't worry, Mr. President Taft. The next president will be our man. As soon as he was in, they had his corporation on Christmas holiday while everybody was on vacation, the senators and representatives, and came up with the Federal Reserve. So they controlled our money. They had their man as our president. So we were the ace in the hole. So they're negotiating over there with Britain, knowing they controlled the USA. Then they had to get to the minds of the American people and deceive us. I've got books on that. I'm reading these. Amazing material. I found this on archive.org. 1952. Anyways, this guy knew what was going on. Captain Archibald Ramsay, the Nameless War. He knew what was going on in Britain. They threw him in prison. So you got a book here with all the details. I'll be going over that. The mind control going on back then. Brainwashing. A synthesis of the Russian textbook on psychopolitics. Psychopolitics, the art and science of asserting and maintaining dominion over the thoughts and loyalties of individuals, officers, bureaus, masses of people, you and me, and effecting of the conquest of enemy nations through mental healing. Kenneth Goff. I've been finding his material, now deceased. Wow, the things that they're doing, the things I've been talking about for quite a while. Kenneth Goff. Brainwashed into slavery. Are the people of America being brainwashed into slavery? $1 here. This is an old one I found of Kenneth Goff's. Shocking evidence of communist textbook on psychopolitic warfare. Evidence of its use in schools across our nation disguised as psychology. Huh. You suppose we have something to worry about? Kenneth Goff. 1939, I voluntarily appeared before the Un-American Activities Committee. So they were having these hearings with the communists infiltrating our country here in the USA. Things I've been talking about. So with that in mind, plus some other books I've been reading, let me read about the First World War and throw in my 2 cents. All right, continuing on. A couple pictures here. Kaiser Wilhelm II Last German king, Winston Churchill, the first Sea Lord. And how many people know he was in charge of the Navy during World War I? Britain's military had a mighty Navy. Anyways, on to the book. France and Russia would close in. Let's have a look at the map here, how Austria and Hungary was about to be closed in by Russia and France. Those were two nations which both wanted war. They believed they had territories they could only get back from Germany by war. The other nation that wanted war was Serbia, but not with Germany. It wanted war with Austria because it had dreams of a greater Serbia, and it believed that war was a way of getting this, and it believed that, although it was smaller, it believed that Russia would support it. So you have this little puzzle over there with these countries in Europe, as we all know. Huge Russia, Austria, Poland, Germany, France, Britain. Times were changing back then. Germany was growing, of course, being land-based and a huge country, and Britain being an island. But Britain had its arms out there, controlling countries like India and portions of Asia, China, the United Kingdom it was called. And I believe Germany back then was called United Germany. And of course, today, think about this. We're the United States. And who has more military bases all over the world than the United States? No one. I think we have like 190 bases all over the world. Whoever controls the United States, and I believe if you've been watching my videos, we know who controls the United States. The secret societies and all these organizations who answer to no one. Well, maybe to the elite Zionist bankster and Illuminati types, apparently into some satanic cult mystery Babylon religion. They control our world with 190 bases all over the world. So somebody is clearly preparing for a big world war. And even Albert Pike in 1880s wrote a letter to his friend Mazzini, another high-level Freemason, that 3 world wars would be required to bring about the global world order, a new world order. And these people into these mystery religions and cults like the Freemasons or Rosicrucians or Illuminati, even Helena Blavatsky, Theosophist Society, people into witchcraft, sorcery, Kabbalah, they communicate with some kind of spiritual beings. And in this case, Albert Pike was communicating with a master. I've gone over videos on all these books. Helena Blavatsky admitted communicating with a master. So all these people into these secret religions were communicating with some invisible beings. In ancient history, they were called oracles. And of course, we all know they were called prophets. Then a lot of people know about psychics and mediums in the 1800s where they were having seances. And now we call it channeling. Huh. You suppose the information is coming from the same place? So these were the countries that actually wanted war. And the situation was that Russia would never have dared to go to war with Germany unless it believed that France was supporting it. And France wouldn't have dared to support Russia in war against Germany unless it believed that Britain was supporting it. So my question is, at this point in this book, when you talk about George Bush Jr.'s axis of evil, who are the evil ones in this story so far? These other forces, Russia, France, Britain and Serbia and other countries were closing in on Germany. It gets much worse as you listen to what I have to read. Britain had, as such, no motive for going to war with Germany, unlike France or Russia. So the question is, did Britain want to do it? Did it initiate this situation, this catastrophe? Cataclysm is the word he uses in the book. It all depended on a French-English entente, which was secret. So it was a French-English conspiracy. This was woven from about 1905 onwards, a deal that if war broke out, remember they had wars before World War I, during the 1800s in different spots all over Europe. So there were some angers being tossed around, some resentments and jealousies, the winners and the losers. So people behind the scenes were manipulating things. And who do you suppose they were? Powers like the Vatican, powers like the banksters, the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, 300 years of the elite Zionist organizations trying to get the Palestinians land, controlling the money systems and many businesses, advisors and to kings and queens and Caesars and emperors and presidents and prime ministers, whispering in this ear and that ear. It was all a game to these people. Your life and my life was a game to these people. So just think about that. Where does that leave us today? If we do get World War III or some huge catastrophe, economic collapse and everything else, a plague let loose from many of the designer plagues that they've uh, invented in the last 50, 60 years, or all these crazy weapons, nuclear weapons, weather control weapons, directed energy weapons, HARP systems, microwave transmitters. Will they be playing games, whispering in one ear and another ear, and manipulating we the people into World War III and seeing millions, maybe billions of us killed? It looks like it. That's why I'm making this video discussing it. What did they do in the past? What are they doing now, even since 9/11? What are they going to do in the future? Are these fair questions? Obviously not fair to the powerful elite who do not listen to anything we the people say. They manipulate and control us with divide and conquer, the Hegelian dialectric, can't even say the word correctly, Hegelian dialectric. Dividing all these different groups, divide and conquer. Edward Grey secretly assured Poincare, so that would be the Prime Minister for Britain, talking to the President of France, that Britain would support France and Russia as an obligation of honor if war broke out. Remember, meanwhile, 6 months earlier, they took over the USA money supply, and these elite Rothschilds, Illuminati, Jewish bankster elites wanting Zionism, not all Jewish people, put President Wilson in charge of America, the president, and took over the USA money supply by creating the Federal Reserve. I don't like to repeat these things, but they are important, so I need to repeat them. They are important, so I need to repeat them. Little pun there, joke. You get the idea. These things are important, what they did, manipulating our world, causing economic destruction here in the United States since they took over the USA money supply in 1913, crashing it about 8 times, causing a lot of suffering and property loss and families destroyed in America for the past 120 years, controlling the USA money. And the other banks in other countries, they've been doing this all over the world. This is biblical too, the money changers. So nothing ever changes under the sun. Is history going to repeat itself? All these little cliches we should remember. It was supposed to be a defensive alliance, but as this excellent book makes clear, Hidden History, and I ordered Hidden History online, Secret Origins of the First World War by Daugherty and McGregor. So I can't wait to get that in the mail and read it and make a video. So when I read these books and I learn about these other books, I buy them. It's where you've seen these PDFs I printed out that were either too much money or I couldn't find them. They're older books. It was really functioning as an offensive war-generating alliance. So these people were making treaties and organizing before World War I to destroy Germany. Remember that. We talk about World War II and the accusations they made about Germany. Look what they did in World War I, if this author is correct. And according to my material and all the plethora of books I've gone over, the ones I've already been reading, haven't made videos on yet, all these documents I printed out, my research going on 15 years, 14 years, seems like this is the case. So anyways, he says that Hidden History, Secret Origins of the First World War by Daugherty and McGregor, Docherty. You can look it up. Go to Abe used books or other used books, or look on the internet and see if you can get a free PDF. That's what I do. It was really functioning as an offensive war-generating alliance before World War I. This is the best book on the subject. Bertrand Russell recalled how he was shocked by how happy people seemed to be when war was declared. People probably dancing and partying, they mind control. Poor people, brainwashed back then. Powers that be know what they're doing. Here's another book I just got in the mail today. The Revolt Against Civilization. Did you know these things? What they were planning before World War I. So the French position under Poincaré, the nature of the Franco-Russian alliance, was fundamentally committed to war, not defense. Thus he visited Sarnova in St. Petersburg. I'm saying the Russian president's name wrong, or the ambassador to Russia's name wrong, to reassure him of French and British commitment to war with Germany. So here's the French leader going to Russia, saying that his country, France, and Britain have an agreement to assist Russia to all attack Germany prior to World War I. Did you know that? And of course, in the United States, they put the puppet president Woodrow Wilson in place and took over the USA money supply. And don't forget, they did have control in this country. These same powers that be brought us the Civil War in the United States between the North and the South. Make no mistake who was behind that. Again, propaganda, mind control, psychology, deception. Remember those words, because they're using them again. People don't know what to believe. My opinion, after doing all this research. Edward Grey, the leader for Britain, secretly assured Poincaré that Britain would support France and Russia as an obligation of honor should the Balkan trouble lead to a European war. In World War I, a lot of people call it the Great War and think it was the only war. But prior to that, in the 1905, in the late 1800s, French Revolution, 1860s, the war between the North and the South of the United States, Did you know there were civil wars going on in many other countries all over Europe at the same time? Did you know that? And these outside forces were controlling the banking systems of all these countries, manipulating the leaders, causing all this turmoil. I guess there's a lot of profit in war, you think? And a lot of people they want disposed of, killed, probably reduce the population, take away properties and businesses from people, resources. But they were planning on this global world order for hundreds of years. Make no mistake. Time is on their side. Apparently, the people forget. So I did order Hidden History, and Grey was Britain's foreign secretary, and Poincraft was the president of France. And I've read probably more than half of this book so far, and I'm reading from page 6. I thought about this video, and the only thing I can do is go straight to the beginning. There's no copyright to this book. And read the sentences and have a conversation, and people can get this book. How Britain initiated both world wars, but who were the advisors to Britain? The Illuminati, Zionist, Jewish people, banksters into the Kabbalah, the mystery religion of Babylon. And that's in this book, FYI. So all this was around the beginning of August 1914, 7 months after the Illuminati Rothschild Zionists took over the USA money supply and had their president put in place. All they had to do was create all that propaganda to deceive the American people to go to war and die. Families destroyed. Country and put under martial law. Woodrow Wilson had a guy named Baruch, and he hired Samuel Bush to handle America in obtaining resources and war materials, who was the father of Prescott Bush, who was the father of George Bush Sr., who of course was the father of George Bush Jr. So look how far this goes back. Did you know that? Also, he always noticed how carefully Edward Grey, the leader of Britain, concealed what he was doing as he secretly committed us to war. So Edward Grey, the Secretary of War, was concealing his plans to get into the war from the Parliament and the people of Britain. So when I do talk about this book and Britain initiated both world wars, I am not talking about the British people in general. It says right in here, Edward Grey was concealing these plans and treaties to close in on Germany. The government and the cabinet and the people didn't realize this. You get it? Got it? If we go to World War III or whatever they do, like 911, they won't consult the people. They'll deceive the people like they did during 911, invading all those countries in the Middle East. Again and again and again they do it. We have here the concept of a secret elite. That's what it says here. Is it possible that a secret elite can drag this country into war? Belgium was founded on a treaty of perpetual neutrality, which was supposed to guarantee that it would not take sides in a European war. But actually, it had been making detailed war plans with Britain in the event of war breaking out. Such things as stockpiles of cannonballs, of the British standard, not French, and coats for the soldiers were found in Belgium. When the Germans invaded Belgium, they found agreements with Britain in the Belgium Palace of Government. So Belgium was actually not neutral at all. And all this deception. And who suffered the most? We the people, the soldiers, the wives, the children. Meanwhile, they're working towards a global world order back then. Okay, Bertrand Russell's autobiography. I had noticed during previous years how carefully Sir Edward Grey lied in order to prevent the public from knowing the methods by which he was committing us to the support of France in the event of war. And historically, Britain and France had been enemies hundreds and hundreds of years. And the Belgium non-neutrality, according to evidence later published in New York, the Belgians were advised in November 1912 by the British military. 1912. Isn't that funny? They took over the USA money supply in 1913, started the war in 1914. You think they were planning something? The Belgians were advised in November 1912 by the British military that as soon as a European war broke out, these people were planning on World War I 2 years before it broke out, according to this author's book. 160,000 men would be transported to Belgium and northern France with or without permission of the Belgian government. And that's in the book I ordered, Hidden History, page 237. Next page, 7. There was a deal for 100,000 British soldiers to be transported across to France and Belgium immediately when the war broke out. Detailed plans had been made. So this meant that Germany realized that it was surrounded, but not by 3, but 4 hostile nations. So 4 hostile nations were surrounding Germany prior to World War I. They don't teach that in school, I'll bet. It was totally surrounded. This wasn't the terrific deep fear and panic that built up and couldn't really be resolved. Who was the Kaiser? Kaiser Wilhelm. That would be the King of Germany. He had quite a reputation as a peacemaker in Europe. So the King of Germany, in the newspapers, was acclaimed for his peacemaking and negotiating and solving problems all over those countries in Europe who were bickering and jealous and all those issues. That's who the president of Germany was. It says here. Here is the New York Times judgment. So it's not just this book. The New York Times judgment on King Wilhelm, Kaiser, made a year before, June 1913. This is quite fulsome praise. I would describe him as a wise peacemaker. Let's have another verdict by a former U.S. president just before the war broke out. The critically important part, which has been among the nations, kind of a twist of words there. The critically important part, which has been his among the nations, the critically important part that has been his, he has been for the last quarter of a century, 25 years, the single greatest force in the practical maintenance of peace in the world. So for 25 years prior to World War I, the King Wilhelm has been the guy who has kept peace for 25 years in Europe. That's no small thing. They were having lots of wars in the 1800s and 1700s and 1600s. There was a BBC program, a centenary tribute to him, which talked about his love of England and his deep attachment to the Queen Victoria. And they were related. They were cousins. They were family. The two royal families shared the same ancestry with Queen Victoria. So the King of Germany loved Britain, was related to them, had fought to keep peace for 25 years, and was well renowned throughout the world, even the New York Times. How many people know this stuff? In 25 years on the throne, he'd never gone to war, and the German army hadn't fought a battle in nearly half a century, 50 years. So it's reasonable to say that this was quite a pacific nation, a nation that wanted peace, pacified, pacific. Whereas Britain, America, had been to war quite a lot. He had a certain confidence in being able to use the strength of Germany to resolve issues of war. So apparently, Germany was dealing straight up, but the not so straight shooters, these other nations, weren't happy with that. They had to crush Germany. But again, you have to remember who controlled the USA money supply. The Zionists, the Illuminati, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all these elites who were controlling our leaders, and yes, bringing America into numerous wars in Britain and other countries. So Germany was the peacekeeper in the center of all of that, probably an annoyance to these warmongers. And not the American people or not the British people were the warmongers. The citizens were deceived. I've got the books here. We'll be looking at this stuff. Continually, brainwashing the masses, deceiving the people. I've got more. So I don't just look at one book and throw my words around recklessly. I like to do research, like 14, 15 years worth, making videos since 2013, reading books for almost 10 years before I started making videos. Full time, 7 days a week. Every week, every month, every year since 2005. So it's reasonable to say that this was quite a pacified nation, Pacific nation, where Britain and America had gone to war quite a lot. He had a certain confidence in being able to use the strength of Germany to resolve issues of war. It says here, Britain and Belgium had been deeply involved in joint military preparations against Germany for at least 8 years. Hidden History, page 325. I don't have that book yet, but it's in the mail somewhere. So here's a picture of this king. Kaiser as peacemaker. Now he is acclaimed everywhere as the greatest factor for peace that our time can show. It was he, we hear, who again and again, through the weight of his dominating personality, backed by the greatest military organization in the world. So he had the greatest military organization in the world, and he had a very dominating personality, and he was fighting to keep the peace. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a president here in the USA like that? An organization built by himself into the balance of peace whenever war clouds gathered over Europe. The New York Times, Wilhelm II, King of Prussia and German Emperor, Kaiser 25 years, a ruler, hailed as the chief peacemaker 8 June 1913. They don't teach this in school. They should. Kaiser as peacemaker. I'm just reading these blocks. Some of this material is duplicated. Maybe it's worth to read it twice. A former U.S. President, Wilhelm Howard Taft, the guy before Woodrow Wilson, said of him, King Wilhelm, the Kaiser, the truth of history requires the verdict that, considering the critically important part which has been his among the nations, he has been, for the quarter last century, the single greatest force in the practical maintenance of peace in the world. Now remember, the Illuminati Zionist Jews, the elites, were pressuring Taft to assist them in destroying or influencing the Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, to be allowed to enter Palestine and create the state of Israel. President Taft and the senators and representatives, as well as even leaders in Germany and other countries all over the world, continued to turn down the Zionists for this request. So the Zionists, which were in bed with the Illuminati, with the religion of the Kabbalah, and not all Jewish people are into the Kabbalah, sorcery, witchcraft, the mystery religion of Babylon, Satanism. Remember that. Even in the Jewish world, there are numerous factions of different Jewish religions. The Reformed groups, the Orthodox groups, the ones into the Kabbalah, alchemy, sorcery, Talmud, Zohar. Just like in the Christian world, you got the Baptist Church, Catholic Church, Methodists, Lutherans, and so many more. So even in those camps, so the real battle is apparently between the world Christian people and the people who control our government, the Satanists, the Luciferians, into these secret societies and mystery religions. That seems to be the real focus point. If you want to call somebody a hater, is I don't think too many of us, but I'm sure some people in the world do, but not too many of us love the devil. But apparently, all these people that are doing sacrifices and bringing us all these satanic symbols and statues of the devil, and even the Arch of Baal in New York and London, and later I learned through UNESCO 1,000 of them, Baal was a devil, a demon. So apparently, the people who control our world are into this mystery religion of Babylon, the synagogue of Satan, demons, fallen angels, the stuff mentioned in the Bible. Let's make it clear. This is nothing new about this. So that's who the enemies are, and that's why they want to destroy Christianity in the United States and the world. And this has been going on a long time. Germany considered itself a Christian nation. And in the United States, they're pretty much trying to wipe out the philosophy and belief in Jesus Christ and Christianity and Christmas. All right, in a 1960 BBC Centennial Tribute, 1960. So what? 48, 50, 60, 15 years after World War II. A tribute to the Kaiser was permitted to say, so this was how many years after World War I if it was 15 years after World War II. Emphasis was placed on his love of England and his deep attachment to Queen Victoria, his grandmother. Never had the Kaiser gone to war in 25 years on the throne, nor had the German army fought a battle in nearly half a century, 50 years. So apparently, the King of Germany was keeping the peace, was a well-known yet probably not respected man between other leaders of other countries and the Illuminati and Zionists and people into the mystery of Babylon religion who wanted to bring about a global world order. So the author of this book says, if I may give you one more quote from a very influential American statesman, Colonel House. He wrote a letter after visiting in July 1914, just before the war broke out. His letter to the Kaiser after his tour of Europe recalled the wonderful conversations they had together. The American statesman, Colonel House, about how he, the Kaiser, had wanted to bring about a better understanding between the great powers. So the King of Germany wanted to bring about a better understanding with the great powers. He wanted to talk to the United States and other leaders of big countries and try to resolve the issues and wars. And he felt confident. I live happy in the belief that your Majesty's great influence has thrown on behalf of peace and the broadening of world's commerce. So what if the Kaiser, the King of Germany, and the German people, and all those other nations that wanted to be a united Germany, like a United States or the United Kingdom, so they were well liked and they were growing. So you think that made Britain jealous? The United States, the people who controlled the United States, the Illuminati, the Zionist people who wanted their own global world order. You can see how they had to topple Germany. Apparently, if you read this stuff and you believe it, and it's true, they had to destroy the good guys. And again, they deceived the population of America. I believe that. Just like with 9/11, they deceived the people of America and the world. World War I, World War II, even the Civil War and other wars and other things. 2008 stock market collapse and so much more. They control these things. But most people, we the people, when I talk about us in general, millions, 100 million, 200 million of us, adults thinking, a lot of people really don't care, don't want to think about it or take responsibility or speak up. Why is that? Where will that get us? So we have had several judgments of the Kaiser, the leader of Germany, the king, of him understanding how, if anyone could maintain peace in Europe, how it could be done. And then we get, just before the cataclysm, a friendly visit of the British Royal Navy to Germany. So all this is going on, and Britain is sending its navy, the new dreadnoughts, came to Kiel Harbor. So Britain was sending the entire navy to the German border. That's not too good. What would you do if you were the King Kaiser of Germany and Austria and Prussia? And with the other countries supporting you, wanting to unite. Poland. And the Kaiser inspects a British ship wearing a British admiral uniform. So the ships go to the harbor near Germany, in Germany, and the king of Germany, the Kaiser Wilhelm, puts on a British admiral uniform. Remember, he's related to the Queen of Britain, and inspects the ship to stress his connection with the British royal family. So there's another little thing here. The Friendship Fest, June 23, 1914. Friendship Fest. Royal Navy Battle Squadron with the new dreadnought sails into Kiel Harbor. The Kaiser, wearing a British admiral uniform, inspects the King George V. June 28, 5 days later, the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. Kicking off the war, probably. So we wonder, how on earth could cataclysmic war break out under these circumstances between two nations that had been friendly for 1,000 years? Britain and Germany, friendly for 1,000 years, says here. The assassination came at the end of June of the Austrian Archduke. And it takes a while before anything happened then. All the Serbian newspapers were rejoicing at the assassination, so Austria had to respond. So Serbia was a neighbor to Austria, and the Austrian Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. And apparently Serbian neighbors this neighboring country, the newspapers, were rejoicing, and all the people were rejoicing at the assassination of the Austrian leader. You suppose that would cause a little bit of hatred, resentment, anger? Oh, poor people. What do you think they'll do to bring us World War III? Will people fall for it? A worldwide slaughter campaign. Can you see it? If you can't see it, you better see it. The only way we're going to prevent it is if we can see it, if we remember the past. The problem leading to both world wars was that the geographical definition of Germany is smaller than the extent of the Germanic people. So there were neighboring countries where the people wanted to join Germany. People who feel they are German are wider than the boundary of what is fixed as Germany in 1871. For the First World War, that very much applies to Austria. The ruling family of Germany since medieval times had been in Austria, the Habsburgs. So there was a deep connection of Austria and Germany. So the royal family was embedded in Austria and Germany, and Austria wanted to be part of Germany. Austria wanted to be part of Germany, it says it here, but wasn't allowed to. So this was, in a sense, what dragged Germany into the First World War. But Syria wanted Austria. The other neighbor on the other side of Austria was Serbia. So Austria was between Germany and Serbia wanted to expand and be a bigger country and wanted Austria, but the people in Austria wanted to join Germany. German speaking related to them. Let's look at the development of the cataclysm, the sequence. Austria gives a severe ultimatum to Syria. A 10-point ultimatum. So Serbia is celebrating the assassination of the Duke. Austria gives them an ultimatum because they've been angered. What's it got to do? And to everyone's surprise, Serbia nearly accepts all of them, 9 out of 10. So Serbia accepted 9 out of 10 Austria's ultimatums. But even in these kinds of situations, the leaders, some of them can be stupid. I added that. But Austria is still angry. It was, you've got to accept them all. The Kaiser insists this is capitulation. So the Kaiser's telling Austria, they're capitulating, they're surrendering, they're giving you what you want. Of the most humiliating sort. With it disappears every reason for war. So there was no reason for war. Serbia relented, capitulated to the ultimatums of Austria. Every cause for war now falls to the ground. Well, this had to upset the people like Russia and Britain and France who were preparing for war, and Belgium. He tells Austria to accept the Serbian acquiescence, but he does not succeed in stopping. Things happen too quickly now. He doesn't succeed in stopping Austria from shelling Belgrade in Serbia on 28 July. See how fast these things can happen? One historian reckoned that if they did it right away, because they reckoned that if they waited any longer, the Kaiser would have stopped them. So apparently, whatever reason, whoever assassinated the Austrian Ferdinand, the Duke, Archduke, so they bombed Belgrade. They were furious with Serbia and wanted to start shelling. It was like 9/11. And they had false flags that kicked off World War I and World War II. That's what they do. Makes you wonder what they'll do to kick off World War III. Or maybe fake a banking collapse system and destroy the economy and declare martial law. Or maybe a plague or controlling the weather and cause some kind of catastrophe. I don't know. Can't say that I'm a psychic and I can see into the future. But if I could, I'll bet I could see that they do something and it's intentional. But the people are going to be made to think it's all just an act of God. That you're all smoking too many cigarettes and driving too many cars and too many electric factories, and you're putting CO2 in the air, causing the planet to overheat and create climate change, whatever they're going to do. Polluted water, droughts, food shortages, whatever they're going to do, plague, viruses. They have a lot of tools in their arsenal to help bring about the World War III, the new world order, the global world order, the new age, and the destruction of Christianity. Just saying, it's all connected. And I've got some other books to look at that'll continue to show that and show that and show that. The cataclysm begins, and the Kaiser angrily says, "Stop in Belgrade," that this must not happen. So the leader of Germany is trying to stop this. He explains very clearly what has to happen now. This is the third time that Austrian army has been mobilized. So one has to do something. You can't just tell them to stand down. So he says, let the Austrian army go into Serbia, stand there and do nothing else. Just occupy part of Serbia until the attempt to ascertain who did the assassination has been carried out satisfactory. So what would you do, or want your leader to do, if somebody assassinated one of your leaders, prominent people? And I think we had that recently happen where a high-level person was killed over there in Saudi Arabia. You don't know what it's going to take to kick off another major war. And of course, Israel clamoring and saying that Iran is a threat. And back and forth with the US and Russia and China and financial disputes and embargoes and tariffs. And there's so many different things they have in their tool bag. It makes you wonder which one they're going to use. And are they really desiring World War III? Like here. But it seems like if you pay attention, like to Jade Helm 15, when they were shipping equipment all over the USA and going door to door in a lot of areas, practicing martial law, using AI, artificial intelligence, software, algorithms, and computers and apps to make decisions. So humans won't be making the decisions when they do this. Who lives, who dies, people metadata tagged red, yellow, or green. Green is you're okay. You probably go along with the Luciferian doctrine, satanic doctrine. Yellow, you're probably trainable. Go to an internment camp or a training school. Red, you're probably a resistor. You'll probably be taken out right away. Metadata. The beast computers, facial recognition systems, monitoring everything we say, we buy, what we do, who we affiliate with, where we spend our money. And notice the banking system is getting more weirder and weirder and weirder. You're trying to deposit a check and they want to see your driver's license. I'm scratching my head. I'm depositing a check. And in my case, I was depositing a check from my business account to my personal account, and she wanted my ID. I wasn't asking for cash. And I even used my ATM card and punched in my code so she could see my accounts. And I've had other friends tell me other strange anomalies. They go in to deposit a check and the teller will have to call the other bank. They're not asking for any cash. They're putting the check in. It can take a day or two for it to clear. Driver's license, please. Let me call the bank, please. Humiliating us. It's continuing. It's going to continue. Not to get off topic here. But I think it's connected. Control. Communism. Global world order. Microchipping people. Depopulating. Get rid of the unwanted ones. Maybe get rid of the elderly people. They're producing nothing. We don't need them. Let's kill them. We've seen movies about this stuff. What will the young people do? How brainwashed are they? How many zombies do we have running around America and the world? Should we be asking these questions? I think so. No war. Don't kill anybody. This is what the Kaiser is yelling at the Austrians. Okay, you want to find out who killed the Archduke Ferdinand? You're in Belgrade. Just stand there. Don't kill anybody. Do an investigation. Find out. He says, on this basis, I'm prepared to mediate for peace. So the Kaiser is willing to mediate for peace for the Austrians. But what's going on with Britain and France and Russia, Belgrade, and America? Who's whispering in the ears and controlling our presidents, like Woodrow Wilson, put in there by admittedly, the Zionist Illuminati, because President Taft wouldn't go along. The real desire was political upheaval worldwide. Things were going to change. Posture towards a global world order. In these books, and I've got many of them, and I got many more to look at. I don't see anything turning the tide of my thinking here. He says, on this basis, I'm prepared to mediate for peace. I think you'll find that Gray said something rather similar, one of the leaders in Britain. So if there was time, if we had time, there would have been a peace formula. That would have meant no World War I. If these other countries would have just given them a little time. But listen up. Which was what the Kaiser kind of assumed was going to happen. How to defuse it. So the Kaiser is going to assume that who's going to interfere? He's stronger than Austria, and he's demanding Austria stand down. The Serbians capitulated. I guess they'll get to the bottom of who killed the Archduke. However, someone else on the scene had a different agenda. You think? If you start to understand history, you got to go, you think? Of course there's people in the background. They've been working for hundreds of years causing turmoil. This global world order is kind of a biblical prophecy. There is an opposition religion to Christianity. It's Satanism, the synagogue of Satan. Mystery Babylonian religion. And a lot of people are into it, all these secret societies and cults. Just saying. You got to look at the big picture, all of it, to find out why things happen. And read books like this by smarter people than me. There's a long predicted war agenda coming up. A long predicted war agenda coming up. And again, look at the preparations today. 2018. 2019 is around the corner. A lot of YouTube videos, a lot of people are talking about the disasters that might come on us in 2019. But of course, every year for the past 15 years, they've been throwing that stuff out there since 2001. I think it's kind of intentional psychology, mind control. People are going to say, oh, it'll never happen. They're always saying it's going to happen. You think they're doing that on purpose? I'll bet you they are. They have a plan, and they're certainly not going to turn around and stop their plan for a global world order now. Does anybody believe that? They're going to continue to create instability in the world. So the people will beg for them to take control. And they'll all take the mark of the beast and swear allegiance to this Antichrist leader and religion and deny Christianity and Christ, all part of biblical prophecy. And it's definitely connected to these things. At this time, Germany was a Christian nation and proud of it. But I wonder who controlled these other nations who were bringing all these wars. You think they were Christian, or were they from the mystery religion and secret societies, Illuminati, Zionists, etc.? Of course, if you've been researching at all, you're aware of anything going on in the world. That's kind of a rhetorical question. You know the answer. So someone else on the scene had a different agenda. There's a long predicted war agenda coming up with Churchill in charge of the British Navy. And the British Navy had just been deployed to the king, just been displayed, excuse me, to the king on the 26th of July. So Churchill, on his own initiative, he sends up, and this is the largest fleet in the world. He sends it up to Scapa Flow, north of Scotland, right outside of Germany. And then, as the Kaiser said in his memoirs, he knew then that the war was coming. So before the war even started, the British were sending their war fleet that way. The war was coming. The war was planned. And there's more information in this book. It details all that stuff. Obviously, I can't get read this entire book in a 2-hour video. That's about the 28th of July. He knew that once the British fleet is up there, that is the signal to all the warmongers in Europe. This is it. It's going to happen. The world's biggest navy cannot be sent up here without anything happening. So it makes you wonder, who was Churchill in bed with? I've been reading up on Churchill. Quite an interesting character. He was spending $30,000, $40,000 a year at the casino, $20,000 or more a year on liquor, if the stuff I'm researching is true. And it seems he was, well, I'll read on and you decide. We note the psychology of Winston Churchill, the terrific happiness he felt as the war was approaching. This is just one of those concerning things. You get these lunatic leaders in charge of countries or the military, but the psychology of Winston Churchill, the terrific happiness he felt as the war was approaching, World War I. And just think of all the Germans on one side of the barbed wire in those trenches, firing machine guns and throwing hand grenades and launching rocket launchers. And the Britons doing the same. They've got all the British citizens killing the German citizens, military. And you got crazy leaders' happiness to start these wars. Not all humans are built the same. We've got some sick people in this world. If you look at history, they seem to be popping up over and over and over, and somehow they wind up in leadership positions. I'm not going to name any names today, but we've seen a few in the past 20 years. Probably more than I have fingers in the last 30 years of crazy people running things. Yes? No? What do you think? Leave a comment. All the cabinet members, the liberals, they have all ash-faced and despairing with all the principles they have worked for all their life. So the cabinet members and the liberals and the citizens of Britain are in despair. They want peace. Going out the window as they are dragged into a horrible war. Remember, they haven't tricked the American people at this time. Back then, the American people were pro-German. A lot of German immigrants in this country, USA, back then. Whereas Churchill was exuberant, I guess excited and happy. And he wrote to his wife, Clementine, "My darling, everything tends towards catastrophe." Next page. "Everything tends towards catastrophe and collapse, but I am geared up and happy." Churchill. And Churchill had a huge part to play in World War II. It is not horrible to be built like that. He's always asking his sweetheart, Is it not horrible to be built like that? He's elated, excited, and happy more than he's ever been in his life because World War I is about to begin. And he's asking his sweetheart, is it not horrible to be built like that? Meanwhile, he's spending 30, 40,000 a year on the casinos and 20,000 in alcohol. Tells us a little bit about Winston Churchill, you think? If this book is correct. To someone else a year later, he said, why, I would not be out of this glorious, delicious war for anything in the world could give me. Winston Churchill. Better read that again. Why, I would not be out of this glorious, delicious war for anything the world could give me. And as you saw me speaking at the beginning of this video, it pains me to see one person killed in these situations, like all the Iraqis in shock and awe, and all those other countries in the Middle East where they were shelled and bombed and economically destroyed. Power plants, water supplies, septic systems, everything, orchards, farming, bombed and destroyed. And plans for a greater Israel unfolding. You can go look up the maps on the Yahoo image site or the internet. All intentional. And part of this. And malicious people who think it's glorious, delicious, war for anything the world could give me. Now, how does a citizen like me, and probably you watching this video, how do we deal with a reality where people like this exist? That want to have wars and want to kill. It boggles the mind. Makes me want to look up at the sky and say, hey, God, beam me up. Little play on Star Trek there. So he gets a terrific thrill from managing it, moving the ships around and managing the war. I understand that George Bush Jr. enjoyed those war meetings. And they really pushed for the invasion into the Middle East. When we find out later on, it wasn't even any of those countries. It's an inside job and involving Mossad, Israel, and lots of insurance money and faulty Twin Towers using exotic weapons and probably detonations of small nuclear devices and pools of molten lava and huge catches of gold in the bottom of one of those buildings missing, and people witnessing big trucks driving out of there and so much more. But why don't people jump on this? I know a lot of organizations like the Architects Association for the World and engineers and other people have been crying and saying, wait, this is not right. The story they told us cannot be correct. We're being deceived. But apparently these people, the culprits that rule our world, just say, hey, we're not going to even argue with them. Just let them yell. Who's going to do anything? And if you get some lone nut out there thinking he's going to get with a couple people to bomb something or shoot somebody, they call it terrorism and want to blame the rest of us. Me personally, I am super anti-violent. I believe the truth shall set us free. I trust in God. I believe that Jesus was sent by the spirit world and he was preaching love. So that's maybe why I find war abhorrent, and I think it's horrible with these people killing so many people all over the world. But it is a difference of philosophy. 50% of the world has probably joined the evil dark side right now, maybe more. Makes you wonder if you could do a little statistical study, pull out a whole crowd of people and ask people, do you think it's right to kill people? Or do you just think it's horrible to kill people? There's a comment section below. Put in your vote. And I know some of you are aware of bad things going on and you want to say things in the comment section. Oh, we should kill this person or that person. But that is not what Jesus taught. He added a commandment, and it was that we are to love one another. And believe me, in the end, I have no doubt about the power of the spirit world, God, whatever, that things will be resolved. The world is a stage. These things are happening for a reason. It may perplex us and confuse us, but we're not to have any fear according to the Bible. Churchill, it says here, he loves war more than anything else, more than even brandy or the sound of his own voice. He loves the war. He gets on with it. Churchill, did you know all this? Crazy information, you think? You'll find omitted, this author says, in a lot of World War II books, the fact that the entire Royal Navy was sent up north by Churchill's own initiative. He wasn't even the Prime Minister. How amazing is that? This is not the Prime Minister. This is the Decision War Initiating Act. So not the leader of the country got the war going. When we come to the Second World War, you'll find him as Prime Minister ringing up the bomber command. So in the Second World War, Winston Churchill's actually the Prime Minister, the leader of Britain. So ringing up the bombing command on his own initiative without having to tell anyone else. Sounds like George Bush Jr. and these other leaders, Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld, and all the goings on behind the scenes, as told to us by General Wesley Clark when he walked through the hallway of the Pentagon and one of the other generals pulled him aside and said, "We're going to attack and overthrow 7 countries in the Middle East." And General Wesley Clark, after 9/11, said, and he was retired at this time, just visiting some friends, he said, "Why are we going to do that?" And the other general says, "I don't know why. That's all they can think up to do up there, those people running the world, the president and his vice president, other leaders, totally in bed with the Illuminati secret societies, Zionist bankster folks controlling our world, working towards a global world order." Put it all into perspective. You start to see the big picture, it becomes clear. And it also kind of gives you an idea of what's next. What's next is what has been prophesied, what is written, what we can see. They're telling us what they're going to do. They're making movies. They're giving us all kinds of symbols, satanic symbols. He just decides to send the fleet right up into the wartime base in full battle readiness. Churchill, the military leader, not the prime minister, doesn't tell anybody. And here's the king of Germany trying to tell Austria to stand down, don't kill anybody. Yeah, we know somebody assassinated the Archduke Ferdinand, and there's a dispute between Serbia and you. Serbia wants some of Australia. Serbia's looking to the future, seeing a destroyed Germany, Austria, and they can grow Serbia into a bigger country. Who's in control of Serbia and would want to do this? And there were a lot of age-old wars, and I think 1856, whatever it said in this book, there was a previous war, and that's why they divvied up the different countries and drew the property lines then. Who owned what? The whole of Europe was in a condition of fear. And there was the horrible argument that the war is going to happen anyway. So one might as well be first. And I was thinking about that when I was reading this book. Will that be the rational or irrational thinking that causes Russia to jump first, or America to jump first, or Britain to jump first, or France, or Israel, or whatever? Who's going to kick off this World War III Super Bowl of wars with nuclear weapons and biological weapons and economic weapons? Just think, look out at your interstate and your city every morning and every night, and all those people going to work in the grocery store and the holidays. somebody could bring all this to a screeching halt. People would panic and riot in the streets. What's it going to take? What are they going to do? Are they going to do something? Does history repeat itself? Are there all kinds of indications that something disastrous is going to happen? Are there all kinds of people out there warning us, prophesizing, saying things, insiders, whistleblowers? The answer is rhetorical, of course, yes. A lot of people are. So shouldn't we look into these topics and be having this conversation? Maybe somebody with some power and some intelligence will say, wait a minute, we need to put the brakes on these things and not have World War III. But then again, you got books like The Population Bomb and The Limits to Growth. I made videos on those books. They think there's too many people, like the Georgia USA Guidestones tell us they want a population of 500 million worldwide. So my logical deduction, and I'm not Sherlock Holmes, tells me they want to get rid of 6 billion people, and they'll probably bring about this world calamity, catastrophe. They got plans for a global world order. They use those words, not me, in a global world currency, in a global one world religion, anti-Christian religion, tie it all together with biblical prophecy and other things I've made book reviews about. And they are connected. You don't think so? The next sentence might be a clue. So the last sentence I read, so one might as well be first. It says here the Rothschilds have come into this story somewhere, don't they? That's what this author says, smarter guy than me. Nathaniel Rothschild visits the Prime Minister Asquith to advise him of the preparations that the bank has put into place to prepare for war. So just painted a picture here, everything that's taking place. Meanwhile, the banksters, the Illuminati, Zionist Jewish people, because the Rothschilds and the banksters had a big hand in negotiating in World War I, World War II, the acquisition of Palestine for the Jewish people to create the state of Israel. And not all Jewish people are Zionists. A lot of Jewish people have been fighting this. It's not all Jewish people. It's the people who have turned into this mystery Babylonian synagogue of Satan religion. Like I said, even people who grew up Christian can turn into join witchcraft organizations and become part of the freak show we see sometimes in our city streets and the parks these days, and the rioting and all the other craziness and the drugs and the homelessness. Apparently, our leaders right now are really not working very hard to keep a decent society existing. It seems the opposite's what they're trying to do. Tell me where I'm wrong. Please, somebody say, Rick, you're not seeing it correctly. Forget all those 1,000+ books in your office and your 600 videos published on YouTube and the things that you see. Don't believe anything you see, Rick. Don't believe anything you hear. Just believe what we tell you. It's going to be all right. Doesn't matter about those people killed all over the Middle East. You're not getting hurt, are you? And I've had people tell me that. Just makes my mind go crazy, going, man, what is wrong with people? What kind of spiritual essence is inside of them? Angels or demons? What do you think? Just saying. So I read these things here, and I get to this portion of the book, and I've read this and much more. I'm up to page 46 out of 125, so almost halfway through this book. So I just thought I'd read a few pages in the beginning, and I took all kinds of notes and lots of highlights. That's page 42. I'm stuck over here on page 15 trying to get a 2-hour video done. I could be talking for hours to get to all this stuff in this book, but you can find it. I'm trying to get used to this camera. how Britain initiated both world wars. So you're getting kind of a snapshot here. That's what my intention is on this video. Just to get people to wake up and see some truths through all the deception and lies we've been told and taught. Look at that TV program, Hogan's Heroes, making fools out of the Germans. Think about that. And these people who control Hollywood, I got a book on it. It says the Jews, a kingdom of their own, Hollywood, empire of their own, and many more books. So they do use these things like Hollywood and the newspapers and magazines and radio to deceive us, to mind control us. But a lot of people know that, if you want to be really honest. So here you are with the story I've been telling, and the Rothschilds have come into the story somewhere, don't they? According to this author. Nathaniel Rothschild visits the Prime Minister Asquith to advise him of the preparations that the bank has just put into place to prepare for war. And this is late in July. This is exactly when Churchill is sending the fleet up, when the King of Germany's telling Austria to stand down, and the Rothschilds are approaching the Prime Minister of Britain, saying the bank has put the money in order. Everything is ready for all of your loans. Don't worry, you can afford it. We're ready. The Illuminati, the Zionist Jewish people with their money are ready, are behind the scenes giving the advice. And I keep saying that, and I'm reading it here. There's another little space here. I'll just hold it up so you can see it. So it's not me saying this. I'm reading this book by this author. To prepare for war, Lord Nathaniel Rothschild made an unscheduled visit to Prime Minister Asquith to advise him on the preparations that his bank has had to put in place to prepare for war. Late July 1914, Hidden History, page 290. The secret elite meet, 29 July, Gray, Asquith, Haldens, and Churchill had a meeting to discuss with Asquith called The Coming War. Am I supposed to believe this book? And if it was just this book, I would say no. But it's not just this book. This is 238 in my series. 238 authors. Some of the authors published more than one book. Well over 250 books, maybe 260, 270. I was counting them the other day. I mean, even David Icke, I got 6 of his books. Jim Mars, 4 of his books. So many of these. Helena Blavatsky, 4 or 5, 6 of her books. Theophilus Society. Next page. This is late in July, and the meeting is to prepare for war, World War I. Remember who's controlling the United States. The Illuminati banksters have put in their president, President Woodrow Wilson, who was their man and even conspired with them to take over the USA money supply December 21st, 1913. 6 months prior to what I'm talking about. 7 months prior to what I'm talking about. All these preparations. So who do you suppose assassinated the Archduke Ferdinand in Austria? Who was trying to get this war going? Who did 9/11? Who created a false flag to create World War I? This. Who created a false flag to bring us World War II? I have information on all of this I will be talking about. What will they do to bring us World War III? Another Pearl Harbor, as George Bush Jr. said was needed? What is their ultimate aim? A global world order like they tell us? Global currency, global religion, anti-Christian, guillotines purchased, passing Noahide laws in secret? FEMA camps? Fields full of coffins all over the United States? And the meeting to prepare for war. to make sure that the prime minister has got the money and the bank reserves available. Well, they controlled the banking system in America at this time for about 7 months. So they had the USA in the bank. They just had to get the people deceived with the propaganda in the newspapers and the media. Again, the death that took place pains me. There is a secret elite. Grey, Asquith, Haldane, Churchill. These are people who are preparing for the coming war. They have said that it's going to happen and how they are going to manage it. Parliament doesn't know a thing about this. Parliament didn't know a thing. The great modern revisionist, so another elite writer here, Henry Elmer Barnes, wrote in the 1950s. See the Barnes Review in memory of his work. He was a wonderful pioneer of modern revisionism. What he called the moment when the horrors of war were specifically unchained in Europe. He puts on the 29th of July when Poincaré, leader of France, and Ivolsky, these were the ministers of defense of France and Russia, met together to finalize that they are going to war. So like the Middle East after 9/11, they never saw that coming. They didn't do 9/11. Germany is sitting there like a sitting duck with Russia, Britain, France, Belgium, all these people, Serbia, surrounding Germany to finalize that they were going to war. The Tsar of Russia doesn't quite know all about this. So the Tsar of Russia back then was an elderly man. He didn't know much about this. But his one of his representatives, ambassadors, or military leaders, Ivolsky, was certainly a player in the planning. He is very feeble, the Tsar of Russia. He keeps trying to tell the Kaiser that he isn't going to war. So this feeble leader of Russia is telling the Kaiser he doesn't have any intentions of going to war. But apparently, the people who work for him, he's old and feeble. But he doesn't have the strength to resist it. Hidden history says the war was deliberately and willfully begun by Tsar Zhdanov, Poincaré, and Sir Edward Grey at the bequest of the secret elite in London, the financial district, Illuminati Zionists, the people who control our world right now, who want a global order which is in fulfillment of biblical prophecy. I found this document. You can find these charts about biblical prophecy. And you can see the timeline of these issues I'm talking about. A biblical timeline of end time events. And you can read them yourself and see where we are. You can look this up on the internet. And I challenge people, go look up this here, timeline, biblical prophecy. Use those keywords, anything, biblical prophecy, whatever. You'll find these. And read what it says, the flowchart. Then listen to what I'm talking about and look around and see the activity going on. Back in 2012 and 13, I found out there were microchipping children. I get a little worn out after a while speaking. In California, Texas, and then in Florida, and so much more. And now every other block or so, they're putting up these microwave towers, continuing to dump stuff into the sky. Directed energy weapons, fires in California, seemingly weather control, all kinds of anomalies. economic concerns, the stock market plunging, stock market reaching highest peaks ever. They control everything. They want a global world order. They think there's too many of us on the planet. And then I read this stuff. And the Illuminati, the Rothschilds, are all involved. So now you got, I made a little note here when I was reading this. The Illuminati Zionists are the same as the Kabbalah, the Zohar, alchemy, and the Satanists. I put that together. The secret societies, Church of Satan, stuff that's in the Bible. These people, this is their religion. What are you going to do? It's Friday, about 6 p.m. when I'm trying to finish up this video. So I think when I finish it up, I'll go take a break. Maybe a nap. This is too much. I'm defending this thesis here that they would not have had the nerve to do it without the secret elite in London telling them to do it. So the leaders of Britain, the leaders of France and Belgium and Russia, without the banking systems, the Rothschilds, the Zionists, just like for the past 100 years or so, who's been advising kings and leaders for 1,000 years? It's always been these Kabbalists, people into this mystery Babylon religion, into magic and witchcraft. They've always been there. So these countries would have never have done it if the elite weren't there controlling it, advising them, promising them with the money, and guiding them. So behind the scenes are these sinister dudes like you see in a movie of the old wicked wizard or whatever you want to call them. Witch, warlock, advising the king. We've seen all the movies with these evil dudes in the background. Here is a great revisionist masterpiece, which should be on all of your shelves, really. So here's another book this author is recommending. I believe I might have ordered it. Patrick Buchanan. I believe I did order a couple of these books. You can go on abeusedbooks.com, abebooks.com, and check and see if you can find them cheap enough, $2 or $3, $4. Then I buy them. If they get to be $10 or $20, I can't really afford them as many as I buy, so I go try to find them in PDF. But Patrick Buchanan, The Wise American, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. And this is one of the mainstream books which revisionists like and approve of. So the revisionists are people who are trying to uncover all of the rewritten history that doesn't tell the truth. That's what the revisionists are. They write books trying to expose all the deception and the lies. And they approve of the book by Patrick Buchanan, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. So the revisionists approve that one. It's a bestseller. And here is what he says. By secretly committing Britain to war for France, these three, Grey, Churchill, and Asquith, left the Kaiser in the dark. So Germany never knew they were coming. Unaware that a war with France meant war with the British Empire. Had he been told that, the German plan was to go quickly into France, beat France, and then fight Russia, because it couldn't fight the two of them together. That was the Schlieffen plan. They weren't sure whether Britain would come in too. So the Germans never really thought the British would go attack them. Long friends for 1,000 years. If Britain had said, yes, we will come in too, then nothing would have happened. So if Britain said, hey, Germany, don't start a war, we'll come into it, Germany would have never have done it. But they didn't want Germany not to be in a war, or Austria. They had bigger plans, and the Illuminati, Zionists, Rothschilds, elite banksters whispering in the ear. We know what they want. We've seen the prophecy here. They want a global world order. They want to eliminate Christianity from the planet and have this new synagogue of Satan worldwide religion. Call it New Age, call it pansexual, call it whatever you want. Rainbow Coalition, Ascension, and all these other words and philosophies and propaganda, aliens and spaceships and galactic command. And they've been really promoting this new line of thinking. We the people need to wake up. Faking moon launches and landings. That would have stopped it from happening. Thereby, the European war was turned into a world war. There was a conflict going on in Eastern Europe between Serbia and Austria, one backed by Russia and the other backed by Germany. And that was a local conflict, and the Kaiser was hoping to keep it local. But once the British fleet appeared on the western coast of Germany, the Kaiser realized that this wasn't a local conflict. It was a conflict that didn't have any meaning other than Germany being done in and destroyed. Britain had a choice here. There was, as it were, nothing impelling Britain to do it. This, I think, is very important, claims the author of this book. So what would compel Britain to initiate this war? Remember who the banksters were who showed up, surprise meeting, hey, we got the money in line, everything's ready. And the elites who put Woodrow Wilson in the presidency seat in the United States after the previous president wouldn't go along with plans to topple Turkey and the Ottoman Empire so they could get into the Middle East. On the 30th of July, the Kaiser was still desperately telegramming the Tsar. So here's the German king telegramming the Tsar of Russia, imploring him to stop mobilization. So the German leaders pleading, don't have this war with the Russians, never suspecting the British were coming. Remember Paul Revere in the United States with the War of Independence? The British are coming, the British are coming. Is the British always coming? Who's controlling Britain? And not the British citizens. British citizens write these books. David Icke's been trying to tell us all what's going on behind the scenes, the evil forces. 1 million Russian troops had been mobilized. 1 million Russian troops had been mobilized. And there's a lot of debate. Did mobilization mean war? Well, it makes it pretty darn likely. You mobilize 1 million troops near the border, I guess you're going to have a war. You notice Germany wasn't mobilizing any troops. It was trying to tell Austria to stand down after their prime minister, whoever, the Archduke Ferdinand, was assassinated. So the king of Germany is begging him not to mobilize anymore. Serious preparations for war on my eastern frontier. In my endeavors to maintain the peace of the world, I have gone to the utmost limit possible. Can you imagine the despair of this leader of Germany, the Kaiser Wilhelm, the king? In my endeavors to maintain the peace of the world, I have gone to the utmost limit possible. Germany was the last country to mobilize in Europe. Germany was the last country to mobilize in Europe. If anyone tells you Germany started this war, World War I, the other countries all mobilized before Germany did. The responsibility for the disaster, which now threatens the whole civilized world, will not be laid at my door. This is what the Kaiser, King of Germany, says. The whole civilized world this threat will not be laid at my door. At this moment, it still lies in your power to avert it. He's pleading with the Tsar. He is saying to the Tsar, which is technically quite true, my friendship for you and your empire, transmitted to me by my grandfather on his deathbed, has always been sacred to me, and I have always honestly backed up Russia when she was in serious trouble. So the Kaiser, Germany, had backed up Russia whenever she was in trouble and had been friends for years. The Kaiser, Germany, had been loyal and loved Britain and had been friends for 1,000 years. So he's reminded how he'd helped Russia in the past. So he's reminding the Tsar, hey, I've helped you in the past. The peace of Europe may still be maintained by you if he, the Tsar, could stop the military buildup. But I suspect the Tsar, being an old, feeble man, and having this other guy here, Shanovovo, I can't say his name right, probably was in league with these Illuminati Zionist banksters, promising them fame or making false threats. He's still believing that he can maintain the peace in Europe. And this is right up at the end of July. Well, I wish I could read more. But can you imagine me when I was reading this book? It just makes it a little clearer, if it's true. And I have numerous other books to look at. Like I said, I just got this one in the mail. The Revolt Against Civilization. And I've printed these out on PDF today. Brainwash. These are books written about these situations. Psychopolitics, the art and science of asserting and maintaining dominion over the thoughts and loyalties of individuals, officers, bureaus, masses, the effecting of the conquest of the enemy nations through the mental healing, and so much more. So again, thank you for watching my video. Leave your comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Cut and paste the link of my video. Email it to friends or send them a connection. Rick Merico reporting.